On episode 393 of the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we welcome back Gary Dudney and discuss his book, The Mindful Runner. You can find the full show notes for this episode at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/393. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness? The 40 Plus Fitness Podcast is here for you. I'm your host, Alan Meisner. I'm an NSAM certified personal trainer with a specialization in corrective exercise and fitness nutrition. Let me be your coach as you find your way on your health and fitness journey. All right, let's go. Our guest today not only walks the walk, he runs the run. He is a wonderful storyteller, and I really enjoy my conversations with him. Even though his books are about running, I can tell you that you can get something out of this for pretty much any fitness endeavor that you want to take on. And that was kind of my challenge in this episode, was to make sure that that's exactly what happens. So even if you're not a runner, I think this is an episode well worth listening to. So it's my pleasure to welcome back Gary Dudney. Gary, welcome back to 40 Plus Fitness.
I'm happy to be here, Alan.
Yeah, it's been 3 years since we talked last. That was episode 131. This is episode 393. So I've gone through a lot of these, but I was really excited to see your book come out because I enjoyed the last book, The Tale of Running, because you're such an excellent storyteller. I mean, you're talking about a race and you're going through the details of it, the locations you were, the struggles. And you do a really good job of, even though I'm not doing ultras, putting me in the place, in the conditions, and in your frame of mind, all in a really well-told story.
Well, thank you. That's really my goal, was to bring. I was a writer before I was running, so I'm not a runner who wrote a book. I'm a writer who runs, and I thought getting the whole experience down on the page was the important part. And of course, as you know, I use those stories to make my points about the mental side of running.
You do. And so this book is called The Mindful Runner. And like I said, it is sort of I guess I'd call it a second edition of the other book. It kind of takes it in a slightly different direction with, I think, a lot more of, the other was about more about enjoying running, and then there are challenges and things like that, but that's part of the value of it. This talks about, I particularly like that you're talking more to the beginning runner or the person that's looking to try to start performing a lot better, maybe setting some higher expectations for themselves, and the fact that they're going to have to push to make this happen. And that's all going to start with their mindset rather than what their body's capable of doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a lot of material that I wanted to include in a new book that I didn't get into the Tao of Running, and a lot of stories and even some short fiction that I've published in the past that I wanted to put into a book for anybody who's interested in reading about running. And then my personal focus is of course on what's going on in your mind when you're running. And there's just so many different ways to be thinking about what to be thinking about when you're running, and so many mental frameworks you can bring to it. And with each new mental framework you bring to it, you find a new richness in running, and you get more out of the experience. And so again, I wanted to capture all that in a new book.
Yeah, I think so many beginners will go out there and, they're excited because they, maybe it's a New Year's resolution, or they get on the phone with someone, they get excited, they've signed up for a 5K and, they're all jittery, and then they're going to go out and do their first training run. Mm-hmm. And once they start moving, their body just starts, brain starts saying, stop this hurts. I don't like
exactly. That's the first thing you discover, is that it's pleasant for a little while, but then invariably, if you push yourself beyond your comfort zone, which you really need to do in order to improve, then you get right into the mental struggle. Do I keep going? Is it worth all this effort? Surely it shouldn't hurt like this. Whereas it's very natural for things to hurt when you're pushing yourself beyond your limits and improving. And it's actually a positive thing that you're feeling that way when you do, because it means you're improving and that you're reaching your potential and you're reaching the goals that you're after. If it's coming easy, you're probably not pushing hard enough.
Yeah. And you use two words that I think are critical for any training. This is not just running, but anyone that wants to achieve a result from their body through physical training, resistance training, running, whatever it is. The words are patience and determination. And they somewhat counterbalance each other, but they work very well synergistically if you know how to apply them. Can you talk about how we can apply patience and determination into our training to get the most out of it?
Sure. Those are two qualities that I've just found, 30 years of running and 20 years of ultra running are just a critical component of succeeding at what you're doing. And it occurred to me that patience starts right there with the beginner who is trying running out for the first time or going back to running. Invariably, it's not going to feel good at first. It takes a couple of months of continued effort in order to start getting the benefits of being in good running shape. And I think a lot of people, they read about how running is, such a pleasant experience and such a good way to stay healthy, or their friends are telling them that. And then they go out and they try it for a couple of weeks and a lot of little pains will pop up and manifest themselves and then go away if you stay after it. But I think a lot of people get discouraged right at the beginning when they've been working at it for 2 or 3 weeks and they still feel awful at the end of their first mile. And so the beginner needs to show some patience in getting to that month mark or 2-month mark of regularly getting out there and running to get to the point where they start feeling the benefits, and then they can expect to get that good feeling of getting out there and getting into a rhythm and being able to get through the middle miles without too much stress and discomfort and whatnot.
Yeah, I think I found that the folks that get really comfortable with running and enjoy it the most, they've reached a certain point of training where their body's effectively trained. And now they're not really pushing their comfort zone as much. They're just staying within their comfort zone because they're happy. They may be a short distance run or they may be a middle distance run. They like half marathons or 10Ks, and that's their happy place. And they run at their comfortable training pace, and then they race at maybe a little faster pace. But the folks that I hear the most that I really enjoy in the running, they're not really pushing themselves to do something faster or harder. They're not that driven kind of person. They're more I just enjoy doing the run kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes a while to get there.
Yes, it does. It takes a while to get there. Your body has to make a lot of adjustments. You have to build up your endurance and your stamina, and that takes a while. And if you can stay patient and realize that you have to stay patient, then it will eventually work out. But patience also plays into when you're racing or when you're doing a longer run. You get to a point where things become uncomfortable, and your first inclination is to slow down or drop out of your race or whatnot. And at that point, when your thinking is going negative, you want to try to use thoughts about being patient and determined sort of as a mantra. And you can just, if you're aware of the fact, hey, I have to show patience here. I have to endure the way I'm feeling right now. This is a normal thing that I'm feeling. And if I stay patient, I will be rewarded. That's somewhere to go with your thinking, instead of going into a negative frame of mind where you're thinking, wow, this is just too much for me. I should have trained harder. Maybe it's not my day. Maybe I could, come back next year to this race and do better. All those are excuses for not reaching your goal. Whereas if you can block those thoughts and feelings, those negative thoughts and feelings, and tell yourself, patience will get me through this. Patience and determination will keep me in this race and keep me after my goal. That's a nice positive thought. And then you can get back into your race and go from there.
Yeah, the determination part, I think, is really where the growth comes from. The patience is just kind of making sure that you're there. You're showing up each day. You're doing your training. You're in the race. You're going to stick with yourself, and this is not just something that you're going to wax over. The determination is kind of that point where you're beginning to push yourself because you want to get done faster. You want to move further, whatever the goal is with this training or with the race. And so I do feel, and I actually in my book I use the word persistence, but I like your word better.
Yeah, determination is sort of the irrational part of your brain that is keeping you in there when the rational part of your brain is telling you, this is hurting too much, or I'm trying too hard, or determination it's like ignore all the rational thinking that you're doing. You're going to stay in this and you're going to continue it and you're going to keep performing despite everything that your mind is telling you.
Yeah, I was in the Army, and in basic training, they broke us up into platoons, and they did it alphabetically. And so we were, with the last name M, I ended up in the 3rd platoon. And for one reason or another, we were all just the worst. Every competition we went into, we came in last place. And the 4th platoon, every competition they went into, they came in 1st place. And so we kind of, by the end of basic, had this chip on our shoulders. It's like, okay, who are these guys and why? How did alphabetically the top end of the alphabet end up with so many better soldiers or better athletes? And so we were going into the 2-mile run, and everybody was talking about, one of the kids who he ran track in high school, and so he's a track star, and he had scholarships but decided to go into the Army instead. And so I'm like, okay, I want to see how fast this guy really runs, because they were, telling me he was really fast. I'm like, well, I wasn't all that too shabby myself in the 2-mile when I was in high school, probably not competing at his level, but I'll try this. And you go through basic training, you're teaching your body in many cases to ignore the pain. If it's not a pain that's going to kill you, you tend to push through it. And so by this time I had done enough of this that I felt comfortable being uncomfortable, outside my comfort zone. So I was like, I wonder if I ran my 1/4-mile split at the start of the race, what I could do in 2 miles, if I could actually hold that for most, not all the 2 miles. And so I did. I literally took off, with about I guess it's probably about a 1:15 split on the quarter. And, the couple of guys in my unit are walking over because they just see me taking off. So I finished like the 2nd lap, and they were like, what are you doing? And I just was running as hard as I could run. Now, because I was turning off all of the pain things and not thinking about it and trying to just really focus on my breathing and just continuing to go and not completely redline out, I actually pooped myself.
Oh, no.
Running. Now, he did actually beat me. But the thing I can say is, coming off of that run, it was the fastest 2-mile I'd ever run in my life. It was the first time. It was the first time I broke 11 minutes, and so even though I came in 2nd, I felt really good. At least personally, I had to keep running and go to the bathroom and clean myself up. But than that embarrassment, it was where I saw that kind of cutting out the pain of it and knowing that the pain was not something that was going to sideline me forever. I knew I might be in pain for a couple of days, but I didn't have to worry about it. We were passing the PT test. So at that point, running the 2 miles was the last athletic thing I had to worry about doing for a while. So I knew I had that in me. I wanted to see how hard I could push myself. I wanted to see how much I could push past. And that's when it kind of hit me why a lot of the elite runners are who they are, is because it's not because they don't feel the pain, it's that they ignore it. So how do we push past that pain when we're training, and how do we recognize when it is that kind of pain that we should be pushing through?
Yeah, okay. I will address that. I just wanted to make a final point about patience and determination.
Sure.
And then we'll talk about that, Alan. One of the things focus of the book, The Mindful Runner, in the title, mindful, of course, is associated with mindfulness. But I also want you to take the title literally, the mindful runner, in that it's a runner who is aware of what is going on in his mind, his or her mind. And I think that's what so many runners, they're always focused on the physical side of their workout, how far they're going, how fast they're going, that sort of thing. And when they think about, what's going to happen in the race, they're thinking about, okay, I want to hold this pace. I'm going to do this particular distance, that sort of thing. But they don't think about what's going to happen to me when things get really bad and my mental state starts to deteriorate. And my experience from all the running I've done and all the ultra running I've done is that if you pay attention to the mental side of the equation and you practice the mental side of the equation, then when you're in the race or you're deep into a long run or something like that, then you're much more adept at using mental strategies to keep yourself in the race and keep yourself reaching your goals. And so just having this understanding of what is the role of determination and what is the role of patience in what you're doing, if you're thinking about that and you're aware of it, then that's a very helpful tool that you have when you're in the race and things start getting difficult for you. And I think you're way ahead of the person who just thinks, okay, when things get hard, I'm just going to gut it out. And that's the only strategy they have. Because when that strategy starts failing for them, then they have nowhere to go. But if you've got these mindsets and ideas in mind, when you hit that point, then you have some resources to try out. And you can cycle through different mental strategies for keeping yourself in the race. So I wanted to just say that being aware of these things or being aware of the importance of these things is very helpful. But one of those is pushing through the pain. And I think having one strategy or many strategies that you've practiced for that point in the race where things get really painful is really critical and really helpful. And I say that from some experience because when I was working up through my ultra running career, I got to the 100-mile race, which is sort of the holy grail of ultra running, is to, do that 100-mile race because it's such an iconic distance and whatnot. And I started doing them, and I had done eventually 26 of them. And if you look at my record for that first 2,600-mile runs that I did, I had sort of indifferent success. I was making it to the finish about 2/3 of the time, and about 1/3 of the time I was dropping out. Then I did another 2,600-mile runs. So I had gotten up to 52 100-mile runs. And in that second half, the second 2,600-mile runs, I never DNF'd. I did not finish. I made it to the end of every single one of those runs. And a lot of things happen in a 100-mile run that can knock you out of the race that are almost beyond your control. So it's pretty amazing to have that consistent record of finishing. And I look back at that record of the 52 runs, and the point where I started not ever DNFing was that point where in my career where I had really started focusing on the mental side of what I was doing. And I started developing the mental strategies that would help me when things got, as they inevitably do, when they get painful in the race. So it convinced me that it was, nothing else had changed. My training hadn't changed. My level of fitness hadn't changed. The types of races I was doing, nothing had changed except that I had some mental strategies to rely on when things got very difficult out there.
So let's talk about a few of those.
Okay, so pushing through the pain. The thing about when you start feeling stress or fatigue or, the aches and pains, especially in a long race like an ultra, your first inclination is to deny that it's happening to you or try to run away from it or escape from it or just not accept that it's going on. And that's usually not going to get you very far, because you can put it out of your mind for a little while, but then it's going to just reassert itself. And when you get to the point where you realize ignoring it is just making it worse, then you're in trouble. So I think the key to pushing through pain is to meet it head on, to acknowledge the fact that it's happening to you. I'm not as comfortable as I was before. I'm getting very tired. What objectively is happening to me here? How exactly does this feel? How bad is it? And you sort of face up to it. And in a way, just that act of facing up to the fact and acknowledging that you're not feeling great anymore and you are feeling bad is going to take a little bit of the sting out of it and take some of its control over you out of it. And then you want to tell yourself, this is a normal way to be feeling at this point in this race. If I'm running a marathon and I'm at mile 20, you're not going to feel good. You're going to feel really bad, and you're going to feel distressed that you have 6 more miles to run, and that it's very hard to hold the pace that you were hoping to keep. But that's a normal and a natural feeling. It's also a feeling that everybody else in the race is experiencing along with you. You're not alone in feeling badly. You can't train so hard that when you push yourself, you're not going to feel this pain. So again, accepting it as just a natural and normal part of what's happening to you. It's feedback to you that you are indeed pushing yourself hard and that you're getting to your goal and that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So your job now is to find a way to accept what's happening to you. And like I said, you do that you can sort of sink down into it a little bit and just let it, how does this feel? How bad is this? And usually when you do that, it's not as bad as, you don't let the fear and the self-doubt take over. Instead, you let your sort of objective look at that pain be what's uppermost in your mind. And then once you face that, you try to get back into, what are all the other experiences that I'm having here besides this pain? What's going on around me? What are there other people around me I might be talking to? Or, what does this part of the trail look like? What am I seeing and hearing and smelling? I could still be focusing on my breathing or on the rhythm of my arms swinging, or there's a lot of sensations going on in addition to the pain. And so you want to try to focus back on all the other things that are going on and try to let the pain recede into the background. And that's very helpful. You want to try to, keep your thinking positive and not give in to fear and self-doubt about how the pain is going to get worse and worse and you're not going to be able to stand it. You want to go to a positive place. This is a normal thing to be happening to me, and I need to accept it, and then I need to move beyond it and think about what else is going on in the race and what else I might be doing that will help me stay in this race.
Yeah, I think one of the things you said in the book that was, that kind of helped me a little bit in this area was, we're not going to see performance gains and we're not going to have our best race if we're staying inside our comfort zone. So the fact that you're feeling this discomfort is really just proof that you're right where you need to be.
Exactly. Yeah, and that sort of mental jujitsu on that pain has been for me one of the really critical insights that I've had, because now, it's hard to believe, but now when I'm in one of my 100-mile runs, for instance, and things start feeling really bad, as they inevitably do, it's not that I welcome it, but it's like it's an old friend. It's like, okay, I know this was coming, and here it is, and I've dealt with it many, many times before, and so I know that now I'm engaged with the beast. I know that I'm getting the job done, and I'm getting to the point where the real meat of the run is. And I'm almost happy I'm there because I'm getting to the, I'm getting into the real contest now. And of course, it's getting through the hard things that are so validating in the end. I mean, when you get to the end of the race, if you've gone through hell, then you're really happy to be at the end of the race, and you have the you get real satisfaction out of it. Whereas if it was easy, it wouldn't be as cherishable.
Yeah. I have clients and I've had friends that, they'll set stretch goals, and they'll want to get to those goals. Like, my stretch goal for that 2-mile run was to beat the fastest runner. You train and you train and you train, and maybe it doesn't happen exactly the way that you saw it in your mind's eye. So at one point, you told the story in the book. At one point, you were training to run a 40-minute 10K. Can you tell us about that experience?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the point I was making.
Well, I think the point being you trained hard for this particular goal. It was, at the time, it seemed very, very important to you, and you didn't quite make it. But
no, I never did.
The things you learned about yourself, the things that you were then able to do physically, you did have some benefits coming out of that.
Yes, that was, having a goal is of course, a great motivator. And that was one for me to get under 40 minutes for a 10K. And the journey that I went on in trying to do that was infinitely satisfying, even if in the end, I never got to the goal that I had set out. But working through the training, going to the races, giving it everything you had, all that was well worth the effort, even if in the end I didn't make it.
Yeah, and I think that's why it is important for us as we're looking at our overall fitness to have that target that's maybe slightly above what we think we're capable of, that kind of scary thing that we're after, that we know is going to take a lot of work. But if we dedicate ourselves to it, we use patience and determination, and we push through and get outside of our comfort zones, the more and more we do that, the better we're going to improve our overall fitness. We're going to improve our mental toughness, and that's going to help us in so many different ways.
Yes. And I should say that quite a long while ago, I mean, I'm getting up in age, I'm 66 now, but quite a long while ago, I stopped running with so much intensity where, I was trying to break old 10K records and that sort of thing. And I shifted my focus not so much on making a time goal for a particular race, but getting the most out of the experience of running. And the way I did that was I chose to run new distances so that, it was a new kind of race that I would be running, or I chose to move out of my neighborhood and, travel around the country and do runs that are exciting just because, you're there in a particular location, like the New York Marathon or the Chicago Marathon. And those goals are also very rewarding goals. And they don't necessarily require that you run with so much intensity that you are, liable to hurt yourself.
Yeah. There are marathons, 10Ks, 5Ks all over the country. I ran Big Sur, I ran Washington, D.C., I ran the Blue Angels down in Pensacola. So, I mean, there's tons of opportunities for you to make this more than just trying to complete a run. I mean, initially, when you first start running, that's maybe it's the local 5K you want to finish, but you get online and you look for races, and pretty much anywhere you want to go on any given Saturday, there's probably going to be a race somewhere nearby during the season.
Yeah, I even have a chapter in the Mindful Runner. It's called Yo, I Know You're In There, which is about, well, the first example I give is I was in Sacramento and I was doing a 50 mile there. And the night before the race, I was in my hotel room all by myself, and suddenly I heard this pounding on the door next to mine. And it was a drug dealer or something like that who was shouting at the person inside the room, and he was going, yo, I know you're in there. Get out of here. Give me my $20. You get the hell out of here and give me my $20. And it just went on and on and on. This was in the middle of the night, about 3:00 in the morning. And I called the front desk, and they said, yeah, we're aware of the situation, but they weren't doing anything about it. And so the guy was at the door for about an hour shouting and screaming. So I wrote about that for a race report for Ultra Running Magazine. And editor of the magazine wrote me a note back and said, I loved your race report, especially the part about the drug dealer. and it made me realize that the experience of running, it's not just the race itself. If you're going to travel to a race, it's everything that happens around, preparing for the race and dreaming about the race and making your arrangements to go there, and then traveling there and the night before and trying to get to sleep and getting to the starting line and the race itself, and then getting home and the satisfaction of having gone and done something like that. And it's an example of where running or whatever activity that you are using to get exercise can be such a rewarding and rich experience for you if you think about all the things that go into it and not just the running itself.
Yeah, I completely agree. The stories, the people you meet for the longer races, the pre-race meeting, when you're just sitting around looking around at the other athletes that are going to be doing this and, saying, okay, wow, this guy's 68 years old and he's going to be out on the same course I am when I was 29. And I'm like, this is kind of amazing to see this breadth of people sitting in a room.
Yeah, now that guy is me.
Well, you finished.
No, but I launched a goal several years ago to try to run a 100-mile race in every state in the union. And I'm up to 34 states now, and hope to get to 50 in maybe 2 years.
Yeah, I guess the question is, does every state have a 100-mile race? Because I know
they don't all have.
Mississippi had a 50, the Touchstone 50, but I don't even know if they have a 100 yet.
Yeah, Mississippi does.
Okay, cool.
There are a handful of states that don't have, sanctioned 100-mile runs. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that. Maybe by the time
sounds like you're going to be.
There are so many runs popping up. Who knows? Maybe those states will come on board before I finish. But the point I wanted to make is that traveling to these races is so much fun, and I've enjoyed so much seeing new places and meeting new people and getting to know the race director at every one of these events. It's been the most rewarding thing I've done in my life, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. In the book, you had a quote, and I just have to share this. It's short, it's simple, but it's so right to the point that I just want to use this. No one can do your running for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's all you had to have. It's like if for anyone that wants to go out and do something, they set a challenge for themselves, it's you, and the book is going to help you get in the right frame of mind to do this stuff. But in the end, when it comes to the training and it comes to the actual race day, it's you who puts one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, exactly. And that was, I think I said that in the context of there's a lot of ways to get help out there when you're running. There's people who, when you're sitting at an aid station and you're really discouraged and you want to quit, sometimes somebody can come along and say just the right thing to you and get you up out of the chair and get you going on your way, get your determination back. You can hook up with another runner and have a conversation and feel a lot better just because you've gotten your mind off your own misery for a while. But in the end, it is all you that is going to get you to the finish line. And nobody can do that for you. They can encourage you and help you along mentally, but they're not going to be the ones that get you there, which in the end is what makes running, I think, so wonderful and so satisfying, is that it's a very individual sport, and it's something that you've accomplished. And, once you've accomplished it, nothing can take it away from you.
I agree. I define wellness as being the healthiest, fittest, and happiest you can be. What are 3 strategies or tactics to get and stay well?
I think the key, it doesn't matter what discipline you're doing, triathlons, ultras, shorter races or whatnot. I think working towards some big goal is the thing that keeps you engaged in the activity and keeps you coming back over and over again. If you're only thinking, oh, I should run every other day just to keep fit, and you don't have anything in mind at the end of that, it's pretty easy to find yourself thinking, not today. I don't really need to, there's no reason why I need to go out today. But if you have a goal that you've set, there's a race, you want to do a half marathon, you've never gone that far before in a race, or there's a marathon in some distant city that you'd like to go to, and you have that in mind, I think that's extremely helpful and extremely motivating to know that at some point the training that you're doing has a purpose and it's leading towards something. And it doesn't matter if that goal is just you going off to have some experience, it's very helpful.
Yes.
And then I think it's helpful to have different goals that if you've always been running marathons and that can get sort of stale after a while. If you decide, okay, well, maybe I'll train for a 10K and see how I can do at this point in my life running a 10K. Or maybe I'll try a trail running instead of running on the road, or I'll try, a 50K ultra. If you get off on some new quest, I think that's something that it's very helpful to reinvigorate what you're doing. And you can find yourself more excited about the training that you're doing because you have this new goal. And then the new experience itself might be something that, you might have. I know the first time I did any trail running, I was totally transformed from a road runner to a trail runner, like the very first time I ran on a trail, because I just found it such a wonderful experience to be out there in the woods, jumping over streams and getting lost in the forest.
Yeah, that happens. True story.
That's a couple of things I'd suggest.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being a part of 40 Plus Fitness. If someone wanted to learn more about you, learn more about the book, where would you like for me to send them?
I have a website. It's called thetaoofrunning.com, and that's Tao spelled Tao, and it's all one word. So thetaoofrunning.com. And that's where I've gathered all my material that I've written for Ultra Running Magazine over the years, all my race reports, all my articles with advice about running and the mental side of running, and where I link to my books, and I link to a lot of other running websites. The books you can get on Amazon, The Mindful Runner or The Tao of Running. They're both available as paperback and Kindle and as audio books. And then also I write a regular column for Ultra Running Magazine and an online magazine called Endurance, Sports, and Fitness. I do a regular column for them as well. So those are all places you can find.
You can go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/393, and I'll be sure to have all of those links there. So again, Gary, thank you so much for being a part of 40 Plus Fitness.
Hey, I enjoyed it, Alan.
I hope you enjoyed the conversation that we had today with Gary Dudney. I love his books. He's a wonderful storyteller. I always learn something when I read his books. I always learn something when I have a conversation with him. And I hope you did too. And if you did get something good from this show, I'd really appreciate if you would become a supporter of the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast. It's very easy. Go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/support, and that will take you to our Patreon page. Patreon is a wonderful service that allows listeners like you to step in and help the artists that are producing content for them. It's very easy to do. Patreon handles all of it for small amounts. I mean, just even $1 an episode goes a long, long way towards help and support the show. So if you'd go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/support and become a Patreon of the show, it would really, really help me out. Thank you. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we meet James Hill and discuss his book, Midpoint. Until then, have a happy and healthy week.